Hello and welcome. This is a video on the prophecy in Daniel 2. This goes through world events from Nebuchadnezzar up until the return of Jesus. So verse 31 says, "Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible." So we have an image, or a statue, and verse 32 gives us more detail. This image's head was of fine gold. This is explained in verses 37 and 38. "Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold." So we know the gold head is Nebuchadnezzar, who was leader of what is now called the Neo-Babylonian Empire. So the next part is in verse 32, his breast and his arms of silver. And this is explained in verse 39. "And after thee shall arise another kingdom, inferior to thee." The next kingdom to arise was the Medo-Persian Empire. One arm represents the Medes, the other the Persians, which combined together and became the Persian Empire. Verse 32 carries on to say, "His belly and his thighs of brass." And verse 39 tells us, "And another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth." So this kingdom will be expansive and will cover the whole area of the Babylonians and the Persians. This was the kingdom started by Alexander the Great, now considered to be the Hellenistic period. The thighs of brass denote the two great kingdoms that developed, the Seleucid Empire in the north and the Ptolemaic kingdom in the south. Then verse 33 says, "His legs of iron," which we're given more detail about in verse 40. "And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, forasmuch as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise." So this fourth kingdom will follow the other three, but it will be very destructive. It also says that this kingdom subdues all things. In other words, it will conquer the area of all the other kingdoms that have come before it. So we are looking for a kingdom that covers the entire area of the last three put together. So there is no one empire at any time which covers all of this territory. There is, however, one type of empire that covered all of this area at two separate times, which is indicated by the two legs, one from the north and one from the south, which leads on from the thighs. These kingdoms would be the Ottoman Empire to the north and the Islamic Empire to the south, one with capital in Turkey and the other the capital in Saudi Arabia. Verse 33 carries on saying, "His feet part of iron and part of clay." Then verses 41 to 43 tell us, "And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, forasmuch as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay." So we know this empire will be broken, but parts of it will remain, and some of the countries it's broken into will be strong and others weak. We also know that these countries will not get on very well. There may be constant conflict. I think the feat started around 1922, when the Ottoman Empire was broken up, and the Middle East started developing into what we see today. So we know that we're in the feet, we just don't know how close we are to the toes. The toes are relevant elsewhere as 10 kingdoms that come together in the end times, and that the countries may make an alliance, but here we're told that they will not mix well, they will still fight each other, so it won't be a stable alliance by any means. Then we have verse 34. "Thou sawest till a stone that was cut without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces." And verse 44, "And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed, And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. So in the time of the 10 toes, Jesus will return and set up the 1,000-year kingdom. This is also confirmed in verse 35 and 45. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. Forasmuch as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. So it shows the entire image being destroyed, which indicates that each kingdom mentioned must be around when Jesus returns, but at the moment none of them are. However, this is important, as Daniel 7 has the 4 beasts which match these kingdoms, and also show all the kingdoms at the time of the end. So even though this statue shows us the kingdoms through the ages, the video on Daniel 7 will show how they all relate to modern kingdoms as well. However, here we will look at a summary of the kingdoms based on their original historical empires. So we have a head of gold, which is the Neo-Babylonian Empire, the breast and arms of silver, the Medes and Persians, the belly and thighs of brass, which is the Hellenistic, the Seleucid, and the Ptolemaic. Then the legs of iron, this is the Islamic Empire and the Ottoman Empire. They conquered the area of the previous kingdoms, and it also may indicate who the king of the north and the king of the south are, Turkey and Saudi Arabia. The feet, which is when the Ottoman Empire was broken up in 1922 and was divided up by the West. The toes, of which there are 10, they try to get on but fail. Another point with the toes is that there is 5 on each foot, 5 coming from the north and 5 coming from the south. This may be relevant, I don't know at present, but it's worth noting. Then Jesus returns, the empire is destroyed, and the kingdom is set up. Thank you for listening, and God bless.